Greetings to another episode of Super Speak Sundays. I'm your host, James the Orator. And as you know, we just identify ordinary people who have gone on to do extraordinary things. And like no other, today we have a great guest with us. But before we bring our guest on, we want to just thank you all for what you've done in terms of following our page. We have just increased our numbers tremendously, and we thank you. I mean, you're the reason why this is happening. So we definitely appreciate. We want to encourage you to smash that like button, and what's most important is to subscribe. So subscribe to this channel. We are really continuing to provide valuable information to families to change the complexity of their lives, and so that's what we're all about. And so today I'd like to introduce someone. I mean, I've known this person a long time, and we recently reconnected. And I'm happy to say that, hey, I'm very, very proud of this person. He's been very resilient and shown that no matter what happens, you still have to keep moving. And he's shown that, and you're going to hear a little bit about that today. Let me read his bio. Growing up in the challenging streets of Gary, Indiana, a place once known as the murder capital of the world, Arthur Brown emerged from a burning desire to defy the odds. Arthur's humble beginnings, which was birthed from his experience living in low-income housing, fueled his ambition to be great. Having the desire to never be consumed by his circumstances, Arthur was the first college graduate in his family. Graduating from college was a testament to previous success he experienced during his high school years when he was nationally ranked as a star. After graduating from college, Arthur relocated to Denver, Colorado, where he started his professional journey as a financial credit manager. He quickly mastered the financial sector with boldness and a sense of determination. Arthur became one of the first top producing mortgage branch managers in the state of Colorado. For over 25 years, he has made dreams of home ownership come true and has provided a blueprint for many, many families. You know what? This guy, I got to stop right here. This guy he's making a difference. He's making a difference. Let me continue. Arthur has a passion for helping those in underserved and underrepresented communities to assist in breaking the cycle of generational poverty. Arthur's success is not his own. His success is rooted in the legacy he's built with his four children, who are all college athletes and driven for success. To enhance his family's legacy, Arthur and his children established the Shalonda Brown Family Foundation. The foundation was created in honor of his late wife, Shalonda, who believed that a college education was the key to success. The scholarship fund provides opportunities for student athletes of color across the state of Colorado who are also seeking higher education and believe home ownership are vital components to success in America. As a mentor, motivational speaker, community leader, and one of the top 1% mortgage lenders in the United States, Arthur continues to inspire and make dreams come true. He is living have to define your future, the American dream. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome my guest today, Arthur Brown. Mr. Brown.
What up, James? How you doing, sir?
Man, I'm doing well, man. Happy to have you on the show. Man, that intro was I got a little choked up reading it, to be honest. Just reflecting back, man, on the years that we started, man, in middle school and just kind of seeing, hearing your journey. And so what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm well, and you're right, man. Going back to middle school, Bailey, Gary,
Right.
Indiana.
Right.
I'm not gonna say it feels like it was yesterday, but I do remember you walking in them halls, and I think we had Mr. Williams together, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Oh man, so many great memories, man, at Lew Wallace High School. They eventually tore the school down in the last couple of years they tore the school down, and so it's no longer there, just a big field. And so it feels a bit strange, man, when you go back home to see that the school is no longer there.
No high school, man, but there's a ton of memories, and I owe a lot to the high school, man. From that Paula Cooper days to us
Yeah,
graduating, and
yeah,
me
yeah,
and you ended up at Ball State University together. So yes,
yeah,
absolutely. Even
yeah,
though you played the wrong frat, I'm not gonna hold that against you.
man.
But we had good
Right.
times at Ball State. We had good
You
times.
know, but we got this Founders Weekend, November 17th. And so, hey, man, hey, you know what? It's all about service, man, and serving the needs
Absolutely.
of others. Speaking of service, I wanna kind of dive in. You have done some amazing things over the last 25 years or so, and a lot of that seems like that it was birth as a result of wife and having gone through some other things. Talk about what happened when you left Ball State. I mean, I know in your intro you talk about track, but talk a little bit about where you were after Ball State, because I think we kind of lost touch.
No, interesting. Great question, man. A lot of people don't know that. After Ball State, right before my wife, who eventually at that time was my girlfriend, Shalana, we met, working at Kmart, man, off of 30 in Maryville, and
Okay.
she came out in '87 like me, but basically she moved in my senior year in college in Ball State, and we both knew we were not going to go back to Gary. So I applied for a job in Indianapolis, and I had actually got a job phone call, believe it or not, the day we were about to walk out the door to drive to Colorado. I
Mm,
got a phone call because I majored in business with an emphasis in insurance and management.
okay.
The ideal goal for me was to be a claims adjuster for State Farm. That was my dream job, believe it or not.
Okay.
Um, but eventually, it was between Colorado and Atlanta because her dad lived in Atlanta and my dad lived in Colorado. So we packed up our two Volvos and we headed off to Colorado, man. Headed
Right.
off to Colorado.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Take us back. Take us back to Lou Wallace. And I know we kind of jumped ahead, but I want you to take me back to, over and over again, you've mentioned track and the impact that track had on your life. I know you grew up in Gary just like I did, but it sounds like you really humble times that you experienced at home. And so talk a little bit about that and bring us up to speed to making that transition.
Yeah, well, I was born in East Chicago, Indiana. Is where I was
Okay.
born at. We talked a little bit earlier that my mom and I think your aunt or your cousin, they both worked at hospital together for
St.
20 plus
Catherine, I
years.
think. Probably St.
Yep, St.
Catherine.
Catherine. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
St. Catherine before it was St. Margaret, but it was St. Catherine. You're right on point. Um, and so for me, we grew up in Colonial Gardens, which is basically subsidized houses, projects, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
We stayed there from the time I was probably 7 till I was probably about 8 or 9. And Jerome Harmon was a hell of a basketball player. He lived 3 houses down from me. Chris Peterson stayed. Well, Jerome lived a little bit further down the street from me as the years went on. But in the project part, it was Chris Peterson. We'll probably dive into Chris a little bit later. But Johnny Grubbs. It was a whole
Right.
bunch of kids that they were kicking ass back then. I mean, kicking ass. I mean, literally kicking butt. So in other words, me and my brother Tori, we
Right.
were fighting, brother. We were fighting every other day to make sure that we were not going to be punks, right? So a lot of people didn't know about that. But as I got older, man, we moved down the street. I'm going to Cooney Elementary School. And fast forward to, I didn't start running track until I was a sophomore in high school. I was always doing basketball, bitty basketball, and I was actually pretty
Right.
good in basketball. But I never tried out for Lou Wallace because I knew I wasn't gonna make the team. They were stacked back in them days, man. So I focused on football and track.
Yeah.
Um, and I realized, I could be pretty good at track. Coach Brown was our coach. Curtis Tenner, Terrence Logan, Robert Brown, even Jerome Harmon. We were all quarter milers and
Yeah.
hurlers. So me and Curtis were hurlers. But the issue that I ran into was my senior year. I remember this like it was yesterday. Coach Brown said we're going to have a runoff because they had Purdue relays back in the day, and
Yeah.
I was
Right.
starting
Right.
to get letters. And I remember my junior year going into my senior year, I made nationals. I was ranked top 30 in the nation in the 400 hurdles.
Right.
So I came into my senior year. I was ranked. I was really good. But Coach Brown made me have a runoff with a gentleman by the name of Alton, Mr. Tall, 6'5" Alton Mercer.
Mercer.
And yeah, and Coach Brown basically said, "Here's the deal: whoever wins this race in the 400 runoff, they're gonna be on my 4x4, which already had Terrence Logan, had Jerome Harbin, and Curtis Tenner." And I destroyed Alton. No disrespect to you, Alton. I beat you, dog. I beat you down. Everybody saw it. Next day, Coach Brown said, "You know what, Mr. Brown, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to put Alton on this relay team." I said, "Why, Coach?" And he said, "I wanted 4x4 that's all 6 foot and over." Well,
Oh,
hell, I
man.
was 5'9.5". That
Right.
devastated me, James. So I quit the team, brother. I quit the team.
Oh, man.
I was
Oh,
so
man.
devastated because I couldn't believe it. And then everybody kept talking to me and said, "Arthur, you don't need to do this, man. You have some offers. Penn State wrote me for track. Troy University wrote me.
Right. Right.
Indiana State." So I decided to come back on the team, and that was the first time I made a mission that I was not going to ever let anybody dictate to me, take away my passion and my love for something.
That's right.
Right? I wasn't going to let an individual do that. So that's where track became a love for me and a passion moving forward in my life.
Yeah, yes. It sounds like that circumstance really turned a light bulb on to say, hey, and I think I felt that way too. Being you said you 5'9", I'm still about 5'2", 5'3" right now, and so making basketball teams and whatever it was, I always worked whatever I did to to be great, and so that's great. And so let's talk about you get to Colorado and you said you have this dream to work for State Farm. But what's the first thing that happens when you get there? Did you ever work for State Farm?
Oh man, I interviewed. Well, actually, I didn't even get an interview, James. The first thing that came to Colorado, man, me and my wife, or at that time my girlfriend, we stayed with my dad probably for like 2 months, and we realized, grown-ups can only stay with grown-ups for so long. So we ended
Right.
up moving into a one-bedroom apartment. We didn't have much money, man. We slept on an air mattress, and we used our credit cards. We lived off our credit cards. And I remember very, very strong point in my life was that, me and my wife, we knew we wanted to get married. And I remember we went back home to Gary, Indiana to get married. And we had, back in them days, you call it a wishing well wedding, right?
That's right.
Where
That's
because
right.
we knew we weren't going to bring all this furniture and all this stuff back with all these gifts. So we made it a point that once all that money that we got, everybody was trying to tell me, James, to get this new bedroom set or put a down payment on a car. What I did, James, I took all that money, man. We paid off all of our debt. I wanted
Yep.
to be debt free, brother. And that first job that I got was through an employment agency. And they took 18% of my salary the first year. And remember, right out of college, I think I was only making 23,000.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
let's back up for a moment because when I graduated from high school, and I tell people this all the time, I graduated from Lew Wallace with a 2.4 GPA, and I
Right.
think I was ranked like 84th in the class. That lets you know how strong academics were at Lew Wallace, right? And then I went to Ball State, brother. I went to Ball State, and I graduated with a 2.4 from Ball State. I took the SAT 3 times,
Yeah.
never scored over 700. Never, ever.
Mhm.
I would have been what you call a Prop 48 back in them days, brother. Prop
Yeah. Yeah.
48.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but that job that I got was the credit manager job, and I had to interview 4 times in 4 different places, and that last job was in Wyoming. Which, of course, me coming from Gary, I only saw Wyoming on those cowboy shows when we were little.
Right. Right. Right.
Cows.
Right.
That's all I knew about Wyoming, man. And they wanted me to have a 3.0 each and every time. They kept telling me, we'll interview you, but we look for somebody with 3.0.
Right.
And as I went up that ladder, I kept destroying them interviews. Eventually, they gave me the job. They gave it to me,
Yeah.
or I
Wow.
earned it. Earned it,
You,
rather. Earned
oh
it.
yeah, there you go. There you go. You earned it. And so when you think about taking that money from your wishing well wedding and then moving into your first job as a credit manager, there had to be a parallel between understanding money. I mean, when you grew up, did somebody talk to you about credit or money? I mean, how did you to take that money and pay off your debt? Because back then, most people probably would have taken that money and went and bought a new car, or they would have gone to buy, some rent. I mean, whatever, because those things were popular back then.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. I think for me, James, growing up in subsidized housing, not having much, remembering when our lights were getting turned off, or my mom had to borrow money here and there, or back in the day, they would tease you when you wore your first day of school, you would wear your new outfits, and then you
that's
realize
right.
you got to wait like a week or two before you wear your new outfits, man. You gotta go in there really slowly, brother. Like you'd
Right.
already had it in the closet, you just decided to wear.
That's right.
Um, but those days, man, prepared me for that. I remember me and my brother. My mom would give us allowance, man, like $1 or $2, nothing special.
Mhm.
2 weeks later, I would still have my $2. I look at my brother; he looking for my $2 because he didn't spend his $2 in the first day he got it. So
Right.
I was very. If people knew me back in the day, I was very stringent when it came to my money. I was
Okay.
very stringent,
Yeah.
and that allowed me to build what I have now by knowing that. And nobody taught me that, James. It was just that part of that environment that I lived in allowed me to understand how important having not having but basically saving was for me.
Yeah. One of the things that I hear you, and I've watched a number of your videos, and I'm constantly seeing, your videos on LinkedIn. And I'm very, very impressed. And I make sure that I watch them because they're very intentional. But you mentioned the word generational wealth over and over again. That's kind of like your, what you build your life around. That's generational wealth. And so it sounds like you started early on with the need to have a change in your life because of how you. But talk about generational wealth and why is this so important to families today?
Here's the deal, man, and for me, it get it I get emotional a little bit because I've seen it so many times, especially with black families or Hispanic families, where they say they don't understand what a will is. They don't have a will. Um, and then you look back and you say to yourself, you got these kids that you're raising, and then they're looking up to you as mentors, as dad and mom, but they don't understand the importance of credit. The three things I tell people is when you hear the word generational wealth, it's not about just giving a young person money and put it in their pocket and now they have wealth. No, there's a multiple things that tie into that. Number one, you got to understand it. You got to understand what wealth truly is. Number two, you gotta protect it. And
Mhm.
number three, you have to be able to distribute it because here's the deal. If you have a will and you say, okay, I'm gonna leave my kid $100,000 when I pass away, if that kid doesn't understand, and that kid, of course, now is an adult, or maybe not an adult,
Right.
if you leave them $100,000, what do you think they're gonna do with that $100,000, James, within the first year?
Oh, it's gone. It's
It's
gone.
gone. It's
It's gone.
gone. I've seen black families and us as black people, I'm gonna say this, the national average, we just had this meeting the other day. We are at 42% home ownership in the US. We're
Mm.
last when it comes to all the other ethnic um, people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, and one of the main reasons of that is we are homeowners. We leave all those properties to our kids and grandkids. But what they end up doing is they sell the house, take the money, go buy nice cars, and go back to renting again. They
Right.
lose the money, they lose the house. It's so for me, generational wealth. When I leave this earth, James, my kids are going to be set if they do it right, and I've set myself up. It's called a legacy trust, and we might talk more about it if we have
Yeah.
time. If not, but I put it in a way that trust protects my assets. So when
Right.
I pass away, every time I pass away, or not every time, but when I pass away, that money is protected. So my kids can only spend a certain amount of it. And then when they have kids, their kids can only spend a certain amount of it.
Right.
And that wealth will continue to generate over generations.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. I haven't heard of a legacy. I know trusts are important, but yeah, I haven't heard of the legacy trust. I want to,
Yeah, we
I want to go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, no. And here's the one thing I know we probably don't have a lot of time, but since we're talking about that, and I'm going to educate some of my people here. So they've heard about the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts, right?
That's right. That's right.
They were probably the richest family in the late to early 1800s and probably early 1900s. Well, what separates the two is the fact that the Vanderbilts, 7 generations later, they're still one of the most richest families in the U.S., where the Vanderbilts lost all of their wealth within the fourth generation. And the reason why the Rockefellers are so rich is because they put together what they call the Rockefeller waterfall method. And what it basically is, James, is that all the Rockefellers came together and they basically said, we're going to take out large life insurance policies.
That's
And when
right.
we all pass away, we're going to take those life insurance policies and we're going to put them in basically like a vault, like a cash vault life
Right.
insurance, right? And that vault is going to be protected by that trust. So
Right.
if you had 20 Rockefellers who all passed away and each one of them had $2 million life insurance policies,
Right.
that next generation, what they're going to do is they're going to borrow against that vault. But when they pass away, they already know what the rule is. And that rule is they all take out life insurance policies large as well. So the
That's
next
right.
thing you know, you look up, you got $100 million in 40 years. Now that 100 million is 200. So it's incredible how they did that. And that's why I tell people when you're building generational wealth, you're building off of life insurance, you're building it off of real estate, and you're
Right.
building it off your investments.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's a three-head monster. I definitely agree. It's so many people, and we've had past guests on our show, man, who've talked about life insurance. It's so important. So some people just don't believe, the change that it can have in a general, you
Oh,
know,
absolutely.
and so we really want to encourage you. I mean, if you're out there listening and you don't have a life insurance policy, we definitely encourage you to do that, because life insurance is not for you, it's for the living. And so you
Absolutely,
definitely,
James.
yeah, so you
Say
definitely
that
want to.
again, brother. Say that
Oh
one
yeah.
more time. Say
Oh
it
yeah,
one more
yeah,
time.
yeah. Life insurance is not for you; it's for the living. It's for the living, and so you definitely want to not be selfish and think about generations behind you. Very, very important. So speaking of life insurance and trust, when you got married to your wife, at some point she passed away. Can you talk about your fondest memories of her, and what you've done as a result of her passing? Not just what you've done, but
Well,
what your family has done.
I'll tell you, man, the funnest memory. And I would not be the man I am, nor would I be the person without her. When I met my wife, she wanted to be an attorney. She actually got her undergrad at Indiana State. She majored in criminal justice, and she was studying LSAT to become a lawyer. She sacrificed everything for me at that time. And I made a promise to her when she did that. I promised her I would treat her like a queen that she is because of what she did. And she's an intelligent woman. And trust me, she was the brains in the family, not me, bro. She was definitely the brains in the family. Um, that was my fondest memory because she sacrificed. I always tell people when you're married, man, sometimes somebody's gonna have to take a step back. Not mean that don't mean taking a step back behind your spouse, just taking
Right.
a step. And she knew she saw something in me, and we built something together. Right? We built something together. And it was 2017, man. It was actually I hired my wife on a Monday because she always wanted to work with me, right? And my thing was, man, I never want to bring business home. I wanted to keep it separate from personal
Right.
because we were truly involved with our kids. Like you said in the beginning, each one of my kids either ran football at the D1 or D2 level. I still
Right.
have one young one left running track at Sacramento State right now. But she stayed home, made sure the kids were focused on their academics, and they showing the work. But she was diagnosed the second day I hired her. She was
Wow.
diagnosed with breast cancer, and it was stage 2. It spread to her lymph nodes, and we thought we were going to beat it. And it was just one of those triple negative breast cancer, metastatic. It was just very aggressive. We traveled throughout the country to try to get treatment. Nothing would work. But before she passed away, we talked, and I told her I was going to make sure that her legacy lived on. And me and my kids decided to start that foundation. And since we all knew that we wanted to do something special for her, so we made sure that we gave those scholarships. And what we do is give out $6,000 over a 4-year period for student athletes of college. The reason why we do it student athletes of
Man,
college is
that's
one
great.
for that. Liz here is 7% black. Number too. My kids are black, but most importantly, my wife focused on
Oh, I think you're frozen.
academics. Individuals this year will be the fourth one, and I love it because we making an impact for that next generation, James.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I really love what you're doing. I think it's worthy of more people knowing about it. But most importantly, you talked about this foundation, how it's building a foundation for other children. But we also talked about early on, building this legacy. We, talk about generational wealth. And one way that you can build generational wealth, of course, you're helping people through the foundation, but you're also helping people with real estate and understanding the opportunities that may be there for them to purchase. Can you talk a little bit about
Yeah.
your yeah, about that part of what you're doing?
Well, for me, man, I remember the first time I bought my first piece of real estate. I was 25 years old, and that was the second place that me and my wife moved in when we moved to Colorado. And initially, we rented it. And I remember the landlord coming up to us saying, "Hey, would you be interested in renting or buying the property?" And at that time, it was actually a decent property, James. It was 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathroom, 2 level um, townhome,
Right.
2 car carport. And I looked at my wife. I said, "No, I want a house. I don't want this." And then I don't know where it came from, James. 2 days later, I told my wife, "You know what? We buying this." And she said,
Mhm.
"Why?" I said, "Because here's the deal. We're gonna buy this thing. We're gonna stay in it probably a year. We're gonna turn it into a rental. Then we're gonna buy our next place, and we're gonna stay in that thing maybe 2 or 3. I call it a thing. The reason why I call it a thing, that thing has made me very, very intelligent and smart and wealthy over the years." But that was my mindset. At that point, I knew I wanted to get into that real estate standpoint. I didn't know at that point I wasn't in the mortgage industry at that time, and I remember I was at credit manager one day. I happened to look at this individual's account, and I'm like, this guy's making $9,000-10,000 a month. I want to know what he does, and I actually picked his brain a little bit. And he's a Caucasian guy, really nice guy. Come to find out later on, we met up and he was trying to sell me Amway, man. You remember what Amway was, James?
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, Amway, brother.
Soap, lotion. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
all
know.
that stuff, man. I'm like, man, I'm not trying to sell no Amway and bring people underneath me. I want to
Right,
learn about the mortgage business. And then he basically brushed me off, and but I knew that's what I wanted to do. And it wasn't so much about the money at that particular time, because at that time it wasn't a lot of blacks in this industry. And
right,
honestly, fast forward 27 years later, it's still not a lot of blacks in this industry. When I was in this industry, man, the average age when I first got in was probably 51, 52, Caucasian male, right? That was it. So I was
wow,
very intimidated by that, but I was never deterred. I knew what I wanted, and
right.
eventually I reached out to this individual at Wells Fargo, which at that time was Northwest, and I kept calling them, James, probably every week, man. Like, give me an opportunity. Kept telling me, you don't have the experience. And then one day he called me. I'm like, wow, this guy finally called me. Pulls me into his office. He said, "Hey, look, we're opening up this particular branch. Guess what, James? This is in the black community." So I already
Mm,
knew what was going on. He needed a black face for me to be able to fit in that community, right? And I was okay with that. Hey, I felt like that was my opportunity to let me take advantage of it. And the
right,
rest is history, because from that point on, and don't get me wrong, man, it was a struggle. It was days that I would have lunch. I would sleep in my car. There was days, and here's the deal, and this is probably what set me apart, James, and I would tell anybody who's listening, you have to go with your gut. I remember my sales manager always telling me, "Arthur, whatever you do, make sure when you leave that real estate office, you don't forget to ask for the business," right?
that's right.
Because for us, we would get our deals from real estate agents with the buyers, potential buyers. Well, my mindset was, no, I can't do that because I don't know the individual. Why would I just ask business for somebody that don't know me? And if I screw up on the deal, they're going to cut me off like that and move on to the next loan officer, right?
Right,
So
right,
my mindset was to get a chance to get to know who they were, understand their family, understand their background, where they from, what their goals are in life. And by me doing that, I built not only a business relationship but a friendship relationship. And to this day, regardless if we're doing business or not, those are still my friends, right?
right,
And I
right,
was
right.
able to build a foundation moving forward, and that's what set me apart. And then I will not forget, at that particular time, and still to this day, I don't speak a lick of Spanish, brother, but 70% of my business is Hispanic business. And the
Oh
reason
wow.
why is because I tapped into that. I
I tell
tapped
you what.
into it in a way where nobody wanted to do that business back in the 90s. They were afraid of it, man. They thought these people were going to default on the loans and all type of stuff. So I built a foundation and they trusted me and they believed in me and they knew once I took care of them, I was going to be able to take care of their mama and their auntie and so
That's
forth.
right.
So for me, it was a situation where I made sure I took care of the brown and black people, right? Not saying the Caucasian people weren't taken care of, but they didn't give me a chance, brother. They did not give me a chance, James. If they had a deal, they would make sure that deal was the ugliest deal they could possibly give me. Wanted to know if I could work magic. And let's be real, I can't work magic on somebody that has 480 FICO scores.
Yeah, I understand. Hey, you know what? You have there are a number of people who do what you do. They provide services to finance mortgages. And so you're not just an average guy who finances mortgages. You are part of the 1% of people who have shown that they're great in this business. What's been a contributor to your success?
Being genuine, being real, being humble, being persistent, being resilient. I think I don't chase the dollar, James. I remember I was probably 27, 28, probably 27 when I made six figures for the first time, right? But I lived as though I was still making 50 or 60,000. So when I say, those are the three words I live by as being humble, persistent, and resilient, I never knew those three words, how much of an impact it would have in my life as I got older, especially on the part of being resilient. And that's the one thing I love in the fact by me growing up and being raised in Gary, Indiana, it prepared me. And I would say this, growing up in Gary versus going to Ball State, because you went to Ball State.
That's
Ball
right.
State was the opposite of Gary. We say Gary was 97% black. Well, Ball State was 97% Caucasian. So it
Right.
truly prepared me for the real world on that aspect, right? But me being humble, man, I always believe, even though, James, you see all my stuff on social media, it took me a while to open up and allow people into my world because I always felt like if I wasn't humble, that God would take it away from me. But
Yeah.
somebody told me, Arthur, the stuff that you've created and you did, you owe it to people, that next generation, to share it, share your knowledge. And that's the reason why I'm doing it now.
No, no, I definitely whoever told you that, you out of you out of you ought to just thank them on a consistent basis because again, when we have gone through storms and we have been able to overcome, we have to let people know because there's someone else who's going through that same situation that we were once going through at the time, and so we have to let people know how we were able to overcome. People need to hear that, and that's important. Last thought. There's someone watching this recording right now or this podcast, and they're wondering about how to purchase a home. They may not have the best credit score. They don't know the first step to take to purchase a home. They've been renting their entire lives. What words of encouragement do you have for them to start down the road of building generational wealth?
Well, the first thing I will start off by saying my mom bought her first house, James, at 72 years old. Let me say that again, 72 years old. So it doesn't matter. I helped this young gentleman at 20 years old. He's a no, he's a sophomore in college. He bought his first place at 20 years old. So for me, that's a 52-year difference. So the first thing you got to do is get with a professional as myself. I'm licensed in 13 states. You could pull me up on the Arthur Brown. I would be more than happy to walk you through the process. I don't care if your credit scores are 300 or 800. It doesn't matter to me. But the first thing you got to do is that group of people, you got to have a team in place. You got to have that real estate agent. You got to have that lender. But that lender is the one you want to talk to first because you got to know where your credit stands. And us as people, we tend to shy away because we don't want people to know our business, right?
Right, right,
But unfortunately, we got to know your business in order for you to know what you got to do. And it's a process, James. It's a process. Like anything else in life, it's a process. So the
right.
three things they need to understand is credit, asset, and income. Just because you file bankruptcy doesn't mean you can't buy. Look at Donald Trump. I think he filed bankruptcy 7 times. Seven
Right.
times. Use the system. It doesn't matter. I filed bankruptcy. Let me say that again. And it was probably, I felt like it was the most embarrassing thing in my life. In '08, I was up to 14 properties, man. And it was devastating when I had two of my big properties that the builder who was renting back the units or the homes basically went belly up. And I had no choice. Either I was going to continue to pay on $300,000 on two loans that I didn't own the properties anymore, that was going to take away from my kids' education,
Right.
or I need to let those properties go. Well, I had let them go.
Right.
And guess what, James? Fast forward 13 years later, I had the two best years of my life in 2020 when my wife passed away, in 2021 the following year. So for me, it's all about being setting yourself up with positive people in your life, people that are smarter than you. Can do that, you're going to be just fine. But you got to have the desire to have ownership. And the last thing I'll say with that, James, is real estate will retire you early. Real estate will allow you to have what they call residual income. So for instance,
Right.
with me, I'm not trying to brag or boast, I make $12,000, $13,000 a month just off my real estate, because my goal was always to pay off my properties. And I'm getting a place built in Tulum, Mexico, which is going to be an Airbnb. I might stay there maybe 30 days out of the year, but the other 11 months, you bet you I'm going to be renting that place out. So it's about real estate.
Matter of fact, when we finish. Yeah, yeah. Hey, you know what? It's been a pleasure, man, talking to you. I tell you, this has been a long time coming. I know I tried to get you on early, and I know you've been kind of moving around and making things happen. But hey, I appreciate the opportunity, man, to be able to speak with you. And I'm sure that the information that you shared today, man, someone's going to be inspired. Please make sure that you look at the tickler at the bottom of the screen. That's how you can contact Arthur Brown if you're looking for a mortgage. Let's get a mortgage or get approved for a mortgage.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dix. It was incredible, man. I am so blessed to just be in your life, and hopefully I could touch somebody on your podcast, man. And I look forward to doing this again in the future.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I appreciate you. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, brother. All right. Bye-bye.
Oh boy. You know what? When you meet people and you haven't seen them in a while, it makes a big difference. I haven't seen Arthur in a long time, but we've reconnected, which is important. Rekindling those friendships that you had back in the day, because you don't know how people can help you in life. So it's about building those relationships and sustaining it. Very, very important. Hey, again, if you need a mortgage, this guy is a part of the 1%ers of mortgage lenders. Let me say it again. He's part of the 1% top folks when we talk about mortgage lenders in the United States. If you don't believe me, look him up, Mr. Arthur Brown. He talked about generational wealth and building it through real estate, life insurance, and I forgot the other one, but y'all go back and watch the tape. Hey, it's your man, James the Orator, here for Super Speak Sundays. We hope you've enjoyed. Again, smash that like button, that subscribe button, and then tell some folks about what we're doing, man. We are excited about sharing good information. Until next time, we'll see you. We love you, and